Welcome to Tonebender's Sound Design Podcast, presented by Sound Ideas. This is the show where we talk with the sonic artists behind our favorite films, games, and series. Check out Extension 12 of the iconic General Series 6000 library, Sound Ideas' most popular sound effects collection. This newest edition features over 2,500 high-quality recordings over a wide range of sounds for both the fantastical and the realistic, including noises of nature, industrial sounds, magical creatures, and lots more. Available in 4 resolutions with descriptive metadata in UCS formatting. Head over to sound-ideas.com to learn more. Hello, my name is Tim Muirhead, and this episode will just be me hanging out and telling some of my favorite field recording stories. The reason I'm doing this is to hopefully inspire some of you out there to take part in the Listener Field Recording Stories project that just launched here at Tonebenders. The idea is to create a full episode or even multiple episodes of our listeners' most inspired recordings and the stories behind them. Ideally, while you are listening to this episode of My Adventures with a Microphone, it can trigger something in your minds that you can send in to be a part of this community project. I will be accepting your recordings and stories up until August 15th, 2025. You can find full details on how to enter by going to tonebenderspodcast.com and clicking on Field Recording Story Submissions at the top of the page. Or stay through to the end of this episode where I'll get into the concept in a bit more detail. This is the second time that the podcast has reached out to our listeners and asked them to contribute like this. Back in the summer of 2024, the results of the first Listener Field Recording Stories project came out in episodes 270 and 274. Please feel free to head back in your podcast app to find them. They're really great. I also want to remind listeners in London, England that there's an upcoming Tonebender Sound Design meetup presented by the Motion Picture Sound Editors coming up on Sunday, August 24th at 7 p.m. in Soho. So mark your calendars now. I think it's going to be a really great night. Okay, let's hear some of my field recording stories. I recently took my family on a camping trip to a place in rural Ontario, Canada called Sandbanks. It's this amazing place with a beach that rivals any Caribbean destination. Nothing else is really like it in that area of the world. The beach on the shore of Lake Ontario goes on for what seems like miles. Off the shore, behind a row of trees, are a series of campsites that you can rent. And every 50 campsites or so, there's a public bathroom to be shared by all. During the day, I went into the men's room and noticed that the urinals make the most bizarre gurgling sound after its flush cycle finished. I'd never really heard anything like it before. My sound design brain kicked in, and I immediately started to plan out how I was going to record it. The area is hopping all day, so I decided my best approach would be to come back to the bathroom in the middle of the night and record it when the facility, in theory, would not be busy. So at 2 a.m., I woke up in my tent and headed back to the bathroom and started setting up to record. Now I'm in the public bathroom, I have my headphones on, a microphone with a big furry over it pointed just a few inches from the opening of the urinal, and I'm flushing it over and over again. I'm completely in my own little world. But what I had not noticed was that another guy had entered and was completely confused as to what the hell I was up to. When I finally noticed him, he gave me some serious side-eye, and I just said the first thing that came to my mind. I just yelled at him, "Sound design!" And then I walked out of the bathroom and back to my campsite. I was chuckling to myself the whole way repeatedly. I can't even imagine what the hell he thought was going on. But I got some great sounds out of it, and that's what matters. Now, this story is less about the sound I was actually recording and more about how it was interrupted. I found myself visiting distant family in a very out-of-the-way farming community, We were on the side of a country highway. There were almost no birds and the insects were relatively quiet, and cars and trucks were zipping by at a perfect rate. Often enough that it was not silent, but dispersed enough that it was not just a wash of white noise. So I got out my recorder, a Sony D100, and I covered it in a furry much bigger than it, meant for a full blimp, and placed it down about 15 feet from the side of the road. I hit record and walked away. I was going to get some really great traffic recordings that were going to be super useful. We were in the middle of nowhere, so I thought it would go completely unnoticed. I guess I was wrong.
It's a microphone, I think. Yeah.
What?
It's a professional recording.
Is that yours?
No.
Oh, I assumed it was yours.
No.
That fell out of the car or something.
Wow.
You know something? I'm going to keep this in the house. I'm going to put this out here. Whoever
Yeah, that's worth a bit of money.
whoever will see this, they'll come and talk to us, I think.
These two super nice guys had seen the furry on the side of the road and thought it was a dead animal. So they went over to check it out. When I tracked them down to retrieve my recorder, they were so confused to find out that I'd actually left it there on purpose. They were positive it had accidentally fallen out of a window of a passing car or something like that. When I explained I was making sound recordings for use in TV shows and films, they thought it was interesting, but I don't think they really understood what I was up to. They were extra nice about it all, though. Whenever I cut these passes into a show, I do it with a massive smile on my face. Okay, here's one that is both a really cool sound and one that has a really important emotional attachment for me. When I first started dating the woman that would eventually become my wife, I knew really early on that she was going to be a big part of the rest of my life. Her parents, on the other hand, were not so sure about me, though. Particularly her father. He is a hands-on type of guy. When something breaks, he fixes it himself. If something needs to be built, he builds it himself. He was not particularly fond of this guy who works on a computer making noises all day, dating his only daughter. I don't think he really understood what I did for a living, and he definitely didn't take me very seriously. He had a screen printing shop, and in the shop were these large industrial drawing racks, made up of metal shelves on hinges. They were meant to put objects on that had just been screen printed so they could dry, but they were really old and the hinges creaked like crazy when you moved them around. It was a gold mine for metal screeches and groans. The next time we visited her parents, I brought along some contact mics and asked her father to help me do some recording. I put the headphones on him and started moving the racks around. They were creating some amazing sounds that were very different from what you could hear by just being in the room. I saw his eyes light up as he listened, and he became really excited as he started adjusting the racks himself to try and make the screeches. He was having a blast. After a while, he took the headphones off and said, "I feel like we're making a horror film here." After that day with the contact mics in his shop, he was a totally different person with me. We have got along great ever since. He often pulls me aside when we go to visit to tell me about some new cool sound he came across, and he will ask me if I brought my recorder. He invented something he calls upside-down fireworks. You create this by burning a plastic bag on a stick hanging up high, and as it melts, it makes these sounds as the pieces fall. He was super excited to have me record it. It's been nearly 20 years since we first recorded his drying racks, and we are still as thick as thieves to this day. As longtime listeners will know, I'm Canadian. The same way American listeners relate to the call of an eagle, which is typically actually a red-tailed hawk in reality, as an iconic sound representation of their country. The same is true for the lonely yodel of the loon for Canadians. It is a sound that means the world to me. When I was a child, whenever my parents would take me out of the city and into nature, the goal was to hear the call of the loon. My dad and I would spend long periods of time on the edge of some lake, trying our best to imitate a loon's call in hopes that one would yell back at us. It rarely ever happened, but when it did, it was the greatest. Few things would make me as happy as getting into a conversation with a loon. It is a tradition that I have continued on with my own son. I have tried to record loons just about every summer for the last 20 years. The problem is that loons don't frequent the shore very often. They prefer to stay way out in the middle of the lake. So to record one, you need perfect conditions. The wind has to be at near zero, there has to be no waves on the lake, or all you will record is the water lapping on the shore. The insects have to be gone for the season, so late summer is your best bet. And even if you find a day that meets all those criteria, you are still at the mercy of if the loons are feeling vocal that day or not. But one night, it all came together for me. The lake was a giant piece of glass without a single ripple on it. The wind was non-existent and the insects were cooperating. And suddenly, two loons started up a really lively argument. In addition to their calls, there was a large cliff face on the side of this lake. It was making really bizarre reflections of their calls. It was one of the most beautiful sounds I have ever heard. Okay, so there are a few of the field recordings that I have captured over the years that really stick out to me. Some of them stick out in my memory because they were created in funny situations. Some have had an emotional impact in my life, and some are just beautiful moments I was lucky enough to get a microphone pointed towards. Now, I want to hear your favorite recordings and the stories behind them. Do you have something that will give us a laugh or a cry? Then dig it up and send us that sound. Feel free to record yourself telling the tale of how the sound came to be. You can either send us the story and the recording separately, or you can combine them and have the sounds playing underneath your story. If you are one of those people who hates the sound of their own voice, you can always just send us in the text of your yarn, along with the sounds, and one of the Tonebender's hosts will read it out loud for you. Once you have all the audio files ready, use a transfer service, like WeTransfer or whatever you prefer, to send it to info@tonebenderspodcast.com. You have until August 15th, 2025 to get them in. Then we will figure out how to make an episode out of everything we get. Please only send in recordings you personally recorded. You may very well have a personal relationship with a very specific Hanna-Barbera zoink, but we cannot include that type of sound for copyright reasons, so don't even bother. So let's hear what you got, people. I'm really looking forward to the sounds our listeners come up with. You have until August 15th. Feel free to help us spread the word by telling your friends and colleagues. You can find full instructions on how to submit at tonebenderspodcast.com. My name is Tim Muirhead. Thanks for both indulging my stories today and for listening to Tonebenders. Talk to you next time. Check out Extension 12 of the iconic General Series 6000 library Sound Idea's most popular sound effects collection. This newest edition features over 2,500 high-quality recordings over a wide range of sounds for both the fantastical and the realistic, including noises of nature, industrial sounds, magical creatures, and lots more. Available in 4 resolutions with descriptive metadata in UCS formatting. Head over to sound-ideas.com to learn more. Tonebenders is produced by me, Timothy Muirhead. Theme music is by Jim Guthrie. You can reach me via email through info@tonebenderspodcast.com. Follow Tonebenders on Instagram to stay on top of new episodes. If you like the show, you can help us out by spreading the word to your friends and colleagues, or leave us a tip. Just go to tonebenderspodcast.com and click support.